What is going on, guys? My name is Sin, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys another Rise of Kingdoms video. um, Currently, in the video, we're going to be talking about the new commanders, and I'm going to hit up the state forum again, just because honestly, I think that it would be pretty cool to if I could get it on camera to hit some really cool, crazy crit of an armament. But the odds of it happening are extremely rare. But if I hit it, that'd be extremely cool too. So we're going to do a little bit of the state forum first, and then we're going to go into talking about the new commanders of Babur, Heraclius, and Marget. And we're going to talk about what I think their skills are going to be as far as percentages, damage, or whatever the mitigations are, or percentages or numbers. So we're going to talk about that. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more into why I think the ranged meta might be a newer, better thing going on, and people are, taking it as a negative. Um, just because, obviously, it's ranged and it's new and people don't like it. So, or at least some people don't. But we'll talk about more of that after I kind of go over the commanders and kind of get into the video. So let's hit the state forum real quick. And we're going to do that. So we're going to hit travel. We're going to go with Joan of Arc. Nothing. Okay, cool. We got storyline. Again, I'm going to do autoplay like I did in the last video, kind of see what goes on with that. I mean, someone said, it works from another video. I forgot who it was that I was watching, but we're going to try it again, see how that works out with the autoplay. But honestly, I don't think it really matters. I could probably skip through it, to be honest. But we're going to do it just for the sake of doing it, because who knows? And we'll see. So let's see how many of the stories we can hit. And honestly, it would be really cool if I had a double inscription or something to kind of offset the gear. Okay, so we got wedge. Nothing good. Honestly, it's resistant, but still it's not great. Okay, more of that to build up my building. Cool. We got another story. So let's see what happens with that. And when I go over to the commanders, I'm probably going to switch over where my camera is, just because obviously I don't have a green screen behind me, so it's not like I can just make my figure pop up and everything around me won't be in the way. So I'm just going to probably slide myself over on screen and then kind of read off what I can and talk about those commanders as we're going along. So yeah. Okay, we got arch formation, all damage, brisk. Nah, that's pretty trashy. Still got a few more tries. Trash. Well, okay, cool. Get me another. It'll get me another slot. Oh, cool, more story. Let's see. Come on. Because honestly, it's dude, it would be amazing to get it on camera. Kind of just waiting. I might even skip through this one just because I really want to talk about the commanders. So I'm gonna kind of just click on the screen, skip, see what happens. Because personally, I really don't think it's gonna do much. See, that wouldn't. If it didn't have troop load and it had the triple stat and it wasn't hollow, although I think you could use hollow formation for Attila maybe, because obviously you'd mitigate less damage, so it would probably help Attila out. But I think he'd be the only one as far as cav stats go that would help him out probably. So no, we're gonna junk that though. Got more story. We're gonna skip right through that. I'm not gonna make you guys wait in the video forever to see if like I land some critical craziness. Like that's not a part of this video. So let's see. Got well clad with all the. See, that's what I mean. Like lately, these armaments have just been junk. It's like I feel like after a while, like I'd say 300 picks or something, they should like give you a triple stat one. And maybe it's like not the formation you need, so okay, that sucks, but hey, at least that much in terms of like, you know, stat gain. And nothing. And see, this would be okay if the Cav defense was a little bit higher. I mean, I can put this on, a random commander as long as like obviously I don't have something better to put in slot. So I guess it's something for now. But I really don't like, seeing stats like that because like okay, if it was triple stat, that would at least give me like something to make up for the 0.7 difference in defense. If it was like 1.5 health or something. But no. So now we're gonna switch over and go into talking about the newest commanders, and we're gonna start with Babur, and then work our way through Marget and work our way through Heraclius. So, with that being said, let's get over. All right, guys. So now we are going to talk about, we're going to talk about Babur, and we're going to talk about, his skills. And then we're going to, like I said, we're going to move over to Marget, and then we're going to move over to, hey guys, welcome back. Had to do a quick transition. Yeah, I can edit it. Okay, so now let's talk about Babur, and then we're going to talk about, like I said, Marget, and then we're going to move on to Heraclius. So the first thing I want to talk about, with at least with Babur, is that his first skill, Victor of Panapat, deals skill damage to a troop target damage factor, and they don't give us the damage factor exactly, just because this time around they don't want people trying to, I guess, skimp out of like thinking they're not going to shoot for this commander at the moment because they're trying to like make it appealing or whatever the Lilith team is trying to do. This skill can only be used in ranged mode, so of course, as you can tell, he's an engineering versatility, which isn't like good at all. And then attack tree. So the only time attack tree actually like works is like if you're getting swarmed really, because it's literally designed for like that reason, as far as I'm aware. So I have no clue why the attack tree is on this commander unless they're planning on him getting swarmed, which in my mind it's like, well, if that's the case, then I don't see really what the point of ranged mode is, because it's like he's going to take a whole bunch of damage and then he's just going to get killed because siege are extremely weak anyway. So I don't know what's up with that. But if I had to take a guess as to what the damage factor is going to be, probably be around 1,500 to 2,000, within that range, maybe 1,800. I'm only saying that because obviously they want them to be like on par with the newer commanders now. So they're going to try and like give them something. And if not, I don't know what they're thinking, but that's me. We're going to move on to his second skill, the Baburnama. And it increases the attack of this commander's siege units by whatever percent they choose, and their defense by whatever percent. This commander's troops deal so much more damage, more range damage, normal attack damage, more ranged normal attack damage. Okay, that's so right, just like shooting. If you've seen them, I went and I watched the battle with 1960 and the big KVK battle that's going on currently right now at this point in time, and I saw some ranged. out there. So if you know what the little range towers look like, or if you've like gone and tested it yourself, you would know. But if I had to take a guess as to what these stats would be, I'd say that it'd be like 25%, 20%, around there for sure. I don't think it's going to be something crazy like 30 or 50%. I think it's going to be somewhere along the lines of 25 and 30%. Because in a way, they still have to make Siege kind of weak, just because it literally says so on the stats, like um, with the wheel, like infantry are strong against calves, calves are strong against archers, and archers are strong against infantry, and then siege are weak against all. So I don't think anything like that's going to change all that much, other than the fact that it is what it is. They'll bring it up, but it's not going to make too much of a difference. So yeah, it'll give them a nice little buff, but it's not going to like be overly powered. And if it is, good for them, good for siege being back on the board. But I don't know how to feel about that. So honestly, it's whatever. Moving on to the Tiger's Roar in ranged mode. Again, obviously you have to be in ranged mode. This commander's troops take so much percent. It says 1%. We're going to take a guess on what we think that is. Less damage from normal attacks. Ranged normal attacks from this commander's troop have a 10% chance to deal additional skill damage factor, whatever. So they're going to give us a 10% chance. Like most commanders have some sort of like small chance to do something. To the target troop, this effect can trigger once every 5 seconds. So we know that it's 10% and it can trigger every 5 seconds. Okay. So now if we want to take, this commander's troop takes, I'd say 15%, or 10% less damage. It'd be around that. I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy. It's going to stay around that range, probably 10%, where it goes up to 4, 6, 8, 10, stops there. And then it'll deal additional skill damage of like probably 800 or 1,000. It'll be around there. That's my take on it. So nothing crazy again, just, it'll do something, but it's not going to be crazy. And then moving on to his 4th skill, Stone Shaker, increases the health of this commander's siege units by a certain percent. When taking damage, this commander's siege units have a 10% chance to gain 1% increased defense, and 1% increased damage, as it currently says, for 3 seconds. This effect can trigger once every 5 seconds. Okay, so what they're saying is it'll do this much for 3 seconds, and the effect will trigger every 5. So that means there's like a 2-second cooldown in between that time as it's triggered. Because once it triggers, the trigger starts over, but it's going to continue to go. So it's really like every 2 seconds. At least that's how I understand it. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's really 2 seconds if you're not counting it triggering for those 3 seconds. So what do I think? I think it'll the health bonus, I'm going to say 15, 20%. Unit defense, 15, 20%. And the damage bonus, probably 20%. That's my take on that. So, like, again, not going to be crazy, but it's going to do something. It'll give it a buff. It's not going to be amazing. But at the same time, if you're in ranged mode, we'll talk about that more. And let's go to his final skill. So it's a new skill, and it's a passive skill. So it's not a buff to the primary skill. It's a 5th skill. Let's put it that way. So it increases the attack of this commander's siege units by a certain percent whenever they use an active skill. Their troops will gain a certain amount of rage per second for the next 3 seconds. So this effect can trigger once every 5 seconds. Now, if I had to guess, increase the attack of this commander's siege units by, I would say, probably 10 or 15%. Again, maybe 20, because they want you to shoot for expertising, so it could be that, but I'd say more like around you know, it's going to be in between that 10 and 20%. It's not going to be anything like crazy, never is. Whenever they use an active skill, their troop will gain, I'm going to say 50 rage per second for the next 3 seconds. Sounds about right. That's like most every other commander that I've seen where they like have a rage gain extra. So, you know, yeah. It's like, and yes, I do have these as screenshots, so obviously I can like go over them through my screenshots. Now we're gonna move on to Margaret because I'm done talking about Babur. We're gonna talk about Margaret, then we're gonna talk about ranged, and then we'll talk about Heraclius. So for 3 seconds, and by the way, this active skill is called Samaris of the North. For 3 seconds, ranged normal attacks from this commander's troop deal a certain percent more damage and deal additional skill damage, damage factor, whatever. This skill can only be used in range mode. So, talking about that, well, let's see. It says for 3 seconds. So her active skill procs, and then I'm going to say the additional normal damage is going to be another 15%. And from there, yeah, okay. And from there, I'm going to say it's going to deal additional skill damage factor of, I'm going to say probably 800, or it could be 450, because obviously if they're thinking of pairing this with Babur, they're not going to make her crazy, where they're not going to be like, oh, it's 800, like all this like crazy, critical damage for ranged. They're not going to do that because that would just be too insane. So maybe I'm going to say 450 to 800. It could be one of those, because we've seen that before where they have this little extra damage factor, but they're not making it like amazing. And if it is like 1,000 or something, okay, cool. But like, I don't really see that happening, especially because it's already range. So you already have advantage shooting from range. I just don't know. And we've seen commanders like that where they only have like 450 or like a small extra amount of damage factor because they already do so much damage, or whatever, or it's meant to be paired with someone. So of course they're like, oh, well, you got to pair it with this person to make them awesome. Like, or it feels that way at least. That's why I said it could be 800, but also could be like 450. Unpredictable. Conqueror Queen. Increase the attack of this commander's siege units by 1% and their march speed by 1%. I'm just going to say 1% until I come down to what I think the percent will be. Ranged attacks, march speed by 1%. Then next part. Oh, sorry, I'm tired. It's late at night and I'm making this video, but I really wanted to get this video out. Ranged attacks from this commander's troop have a 10% chance to increase its normal attack damage by blank 1% for 3 seconds. This effect can trigger every 5 seconds. Okay, so if we go back to this one, range normal attacks from this commander's troop deal blah blah blah, and then if we go back to this one, increase its normal attack damage. Okay, so this is just a general normal attack damage, but obviously they're implying, from the first skill, you're gonna use it in ranged mode. So let's just pretend it's ranged normal attack damage, okay? And it's talking about for so many seconds. So what do I think the percentages will be? And their march speed, I'm gonna say 15%. Because it says and the march speed. So it's implying that this is this one part does 2 things. And then ranged attacks from this commander. Again, so even at the top it says ranged attacks. Just like right over here it says ranged normal attacks. So they're essentially saying it's ranged normal attacks. But you know what? It could be range. I don't know. It's weird because the way they're wording it could be really weird. Like ranged attacks. Like, oh, hey, if you pop an active skill in ranged mode, does that count as a ranged attack or not? Or is it just skill damage? I mean, honestly, I would assume it's just normal attacks, but I don't know. I'm gonna say it's 10%. Because if you're already getting like so much percent from the first skill, probably only getting like 10, maybe 20%. If we're thinking about it, really, it could be 20. Because if you don't obviously get Babur, what's the point of having Marget if she doesn't have any sort of like little bit of stat gain? So could be 20%. Now in ranged mode, see again, ranged mode. This commander's troops deal extra ranged skill damage. Okay, so this has to be ranged skill damage. When their troop deals, so much extra skill damage. When their troop deals skill damage, it has a 10% chance to reduce the target troop's march speed. So this can be really good in the future. So imagine like having like, like what Saladin does or like what Richard does with march speed reduction. But this is by chance. For a certain percentage for 3 seconds, and this effect can trigger every 5 seconds. So essentially what they're saying is when they deal skill damage, okay, and she's engineering support. So support already has, if you remember at the bottom of the tree, every time you proc a skill, it will slow the target. So it's kind of like Ethelflaed in that way. If you're like, oh, you proc this skill and it will slow your target down. So this already has 10% chance. And then you're adding on that effect. I forgot what it's called because I haven't looked at support tree in forever, which is funny. But that is what that is. So as far as skill damage bonus, extra range skill damage, I'm going to say, I'm going to say 15, 20%. I don't think it's going to be crazy because it's all percentage based. So if you're going percent, it's like, okay, well, it's going to be like 20%. At least that's me. Could be 25. Who knows? As far as march speed reduction, I'm going to say it's going to be 15%. It's going to be a 15% march speed reduction. That's my call. That's my take. All right, now that we're going on to the fourth skill, obedience is power. We're going to say increases the attack of this commander's troop by 1% ranged normal attack from this commander's troops, having a 10% chance to reduce the target troops' defense for 1% for 3 seconds. Okay, so again, more increased attack on the commander's troop. Range normal attacks from this, yeah. So again, they're increasing the attack of this commander's troop, but down low it says damage bonus. It doesn't say attack. So I'm guessing when they say increases the attack, they're talking about all damage because they're not implying down low on the upgrade preview that it's just attack like over here. Wait, I want to find it, like siege unit attack bonus or a normal attack damage bonus. They're just saying it's a damage bonus. So in my implementation, I think is how you say it. I don't even know. That means all damage. So I'd say 10%. Because if it's all if that is implying that is all damage, because the wording says the attack, but down low it says damage. So are we talking about attack, damage, or are we just talking about the overall attack? If it's overall damage, meaning your counter, normal skill, 10%. Facts, because it's like that's essentially 30% stats across the board. At least it's how some people put it. Could be 15. I doubt it, but I'll say 10. Now, as far as reducing the target's defense, we're going to go with 20%. I'm going to say it's 20% because a lot of commanders right now have like 30% health reduction. So I'm going to say 20% defense reduction at least, or 30%, 20 to 30. Pick that one, whichever one you think it's going to be. I think it's going to be one of the two. It's not going to be 25. It's not going to be 15. It's going to be 20 or 30% due to the fact that if you look at like, okay, we just got Scipio out a while ago, and he does 30% health reduction. So, and if you look at like Alexander the Great, he also has like 30%, I think, health reduction. I can't remember off the top of my head. Don't quote me. Could be like more than that. But in my mind right now, I know it's a large amount of health reduction. So it's going to be between the 20 to 30%. It's like, honestly, I haven't, looked at my Alex in a while, like that, like intuitively. So don't quote me. Now, going on to her final skill. It's a new skill. So again, you're getting a 5th skill. Increases the defense of this commander's siege units by a certain percent when taking damage. Okay, so essentially when you're in ranged mode, because they're saying when you're in ranged mode, that's when all your other stuff is affected, so you're going to be in ranged mode when this happens. If you're not, I mean, you don't have to be, but obviously if all the other skills are really only affected by being in ranged mode, guess what that means? That you're probably taking damage in ranged mode. So the Calamar Union, you increase the defense of this commander's siege units by a certain percent when taking damage. This commander's troops have a 10% chance to heal itself. Healing factor, whatever. This effect can trigger once every 5 seconds. Okay, well, let's dub this down. So I think the defense will increase 15%. And I think that this commander's troops have 10% chance to heal itself. Okay, so that means that every time they're getting attacked, it will proc every, 10 trigger once every 5 seconds. And I'm going to say the healing factor is going to be like 750. It's not going to be crazy. It's going to be a little bit, is what it is. Now, if we want to talk about why I think, because this is the part of the video that I want to talk about why I think ranged is really going to take over the meta. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that I think ranged, even though you're not getting severely wounded, just being far away and doing normal attack, you are essentially just draining troops out of a march for someone else who's got better units to destroy them. So for free-to-plays, and I've heard this said many times, for free-to-plays, it's like you might want to go this route. And I think it's funny because, yeah, you're not going to get any severely wounded or anything like that. They're all going to be slightly wounded on, your reports as far as like any sort of attacks go. But what you're doing is you're making those marches weaker. So when the people that have better commanders and better gear go into a giant, murder ball, they're going to automatically just start wrecking because having those more troops out the gate gives you more power over that other person's troops. So it's just going to make it harder for that person who has less troops to like do more damage to this person because your troops also affect how much damage you do. So the less of that you have, the less you're going to do. And that's just a fact. If you have good gear though, I mean, it might help out, but I think ranged will take over in the sense of just cleaning the field and just clearing it up. So even though people will have more troops to keep coming back to the battle because obviously they're not getting as many severely wounded, it'll help clean up so that people can get ready to like drop forts more frequently, stuff like that. Because if you're cleaning up the field, then there's not a lot of marches out there reinforcing, doing a whole bunch of other stuff. They're just having to go back, and it just makes it totally useless for marches to be out there. Because if you're trying to reinforce with like, let's say, you got a full march to reinforce with, and you're just picking off a bunch of troops, it's like, okay, well, now you're not getting as much benefit. So honestly, I think that's what it's going to be used for. I think it's going to clean up the field more. And even though people have more troops to bring back and back and back, it's just going to get annoying to keep getting, drained and killed and have other people who are stronger than you or whatever just coming and picking you off because now you're this much weaker from all that range damage hitting you. So I just think that that's where it's at. So, if you go for the ranged meta, it's like, yeah, you're not going to get a lot of sev wounds. But at the same time, well, is what it is, bro. Like, that's where the meta's headed. So really be thinking about how to use those range strats. And honestly, if you haven't figured that out yet, it's like, well, obviously there's some other people like me who are thinking, wow, yeah, hey, you can clean the field up and we're not going to get a bunch of severely wounded, but it's not going to be a lot of people with stats either. So, whatever. All right, now moving on to Heraclius. Now that I've had my kind of like little rant about how I think ranged is going to be used and how it probably is already getting used and whatever. Hammer of, I'm going to butcher this, Nineveh, I think. Deals direct damage of up to 5 nearby target troops. Damage factor 1. Damage dealt to each target is reduced. So essentially like Esong. By 15% for each additional target. The skill also grants this commander's troop a mighty shield for 3 seconds. Damage factor of 1. Now, what do I think the damage factor is going to be? Could be around 2,000 because obviously it's going to take 15% less. So, could work out in that way. But because they have the mighty shield damage factor, I'm going to go with the fact that I think they're going to drop the direct damage factor down to 1,800 and that they're going to make the mighty shield damage factor probably around like 1,000. Sounds about right. Maybe not, maybe like 850. Who knows? Okay. Thamada is a passive skill. Increases the health of this commander's troop by 1% when serving as a garrison commander. Okay, so obviously if you're using this in a garrison, very helpful. Normal attacks from this commander's troop have a 10% chance to increase its own counterattack damage by 1% for 3 seconds if garrisoning your own city. Okay, this effect can trigger once every 8 seconds. So, essentially, you get a counterattack damage bonus when serving as a garrison commander. Normal attacks from this troop have a 10% chance to increase its own counterattack damage by 1% for 3 seconds, and then 1% if garrisoning your own city. Okay, so the health bonus, I'm going to go with 20% right out the gate because they're not going to want to bring it up too much because obviously they still want to probably make Scipio viable or any health reduction commander. So they're going to make it just enough to where it's like if it does reduce health, like Scipio's 30%, it'll only reduce it by like 10%. So it's not like a big deal. So I'm going to say 20%. Maybe it could be 30, but then that would just like, even out. So I don't know. But I'm going to say 20%. That's my take. Garrison counterattack damage bonus. I'm going to go with 15%. I think that's pretty solid, especially because what they're going to do is they're going to add another 15% damage bonus of counterattack damage bonus on your own city. So what they're going to do is they're going to say, oh yeah, it's viable for a garrison, but it'll be even more viable. You'll get 30% counterattack damage if it's in your city. So it's more or less going to be for your city, but it could be viable in an actual garrison due to the fact that you do have garrison and defense tree. So that could work. And because those two trees don't require one specific troop type, could work out. Or you could put a primary commander in front of it who's infantry. And that would work like, Richard. Not that I'm saying you'd use Richard, but just as a garrison commander who's infantry out there, you could put him in there and or Charles Martel, whatever. And Charles Martel already does counterattack damage, so putting him in front with this guy, you would just be making your counterattack damage like insane. Scutin of Byzantium increases the skill damage of this commander's troop by 1% when they use an active skill. And then it says their troop gains a mighty shield. So they get another one. Damage factor 1. And then damage factor 1 if garrisoned in your city. So this effect can trigger once every 8 seconds. Okay, so skill damage bonus, I'm going to say 15%. Mighty shield factor bonus, or mighty shield factor, I'm going to say another 850. And then while garrisoned in the city, I'm going to say 450. Probably not a lot. And then Zalius increased the defense of this commander's troop by 1% and its attack by 1% when garrisoned in a stronghold of your city. When their troop is attacked while it has a shield, it has a 30% chance to deal direct damage to the attacking troop. Damage factor 1. So this effect can trigger every 8 seconds. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. The defense bonus and the attack bonus in a stronghold or a city, I'm going to go with 20%. And then as far as the direct damage factor goes, as I'm like reading this, I'm going to say that the direct damage factor, because it has a 30% chance, I'm going to say it's going to deal another like, could be 850 or 800 solid. So it could be 800. I'm going to go with 800. And that's only because a lot of these commanders now are like doing, oh, it has extra chance to proc damage, more damage proc. So it's like, okay, well, if we're going to do that, then you got to like bring down the numbers for everything else, because when you add up all that damage, it's like crazy amounts of damage just because proc chance. Like it could proc once, then 8 seconds later procs right again. Might not proc right away. It could be like 12 seconds later, but it could proc every 8 seconds. And that's more or less usually what happens, or at least that's how I feel it happens, but yeah. So honestly, guys, what do I think of the new commanders? I think that honestly, if you're new to the game and you're kind of like still playing around with your account and you haven't really done too much investing and you kind of like playing with the new ranged arrow towers, I'd say ranged is for you, just because maybe that's how you want to contribute. You want to help clean up the field and help your guys that are doing all the damage out there get way more severely damaged. But I don't know if that's going to help them really, because obviously if you're making more slightly wounded, I think it will reduce the amount of severely wounded for their reports. I could be wrong, but I don't know how much it's going to help versus how much more negatively it's going to affect reports, because people just aren't going to have as many severely wounded as there could be. So we'll see how that plays out. But like I said, it will help clean up the field more, or at least faster. And I did forget the last skill for Heraclius. It's the Eagle Banner, and it is a new skill. So again, you get a 5th skill. It's not a skill to boost up the first skill. It's a new skill. This commander's troop takes 1% less damage from normal attacks. If this commander's troop contains at least 3 different unit types, damage taken is reduced by an extra 1%. Okay, so what do I think that this damage takes less normal attack? I'm going to say 10%. And then as far as if it contains 3 different units, it's going to be 10%. And the reason why they're going to do that is to kind of force you to use it in your city. Pretty much. Because honestly, if they made the bonus so good, you wouldn't use it in your city. Because there's just no reason for your city to be getting rallied, really, unless you're like really trying to get caught out, but nobody really is actually trying to get caught out. So in my mind, it's like, no, they're not going to make it amazing due to the fact that they want you to use it in your city, not in a stronghold. You can use it in a stronghold, but they don't want you to. I promise you that. It probably will work in a stronghold, probably will work really well. But yeah, no. So it is what it is. Now, as far as it goes, as far as what I was talking about a minute ago with ranged, you want to invest in those, you can. I would leave it up to the people who actually have the money to spend, and if they want to try to kind of mess with that, but of course they aren't going to want to give up getting their kill points, severely wounded, in their reports and helping out in that way most of the time. Like they're not going to want to do that unless they have the crystal tech to get 7 marches, and then maybe. But that would take a special kind of spender who really wants to play around with ranged and not really care about their KP or anything like that all too much. So, take it for what it is. And then as far as Heraclius goes, I mean, as far as big spenders go, they're going to invest in him right away and they're going to test him out. That's just a fact. He's one of the ones that, as far as I can see, stat wise, he's going to have the stats to back up what he can as far as being a city garrison commander. But will he work in, strongholds? Who knows? He might be very well the next best one. But I think he'll go behind a commander like Charles Martel or like Zenobia, or like Artemisia. Not that you need her, but because his stats are all neutral and they're not truly, other than this 5th skill, truly 3 troop stat based. It's all around stats, so you could use it for behind whoever. But I'm gonna say he's the secondary. He's gonna be the secondary. He's gonna be like the YSG of leadership, is what it is. But anyway, guys, it's getting late. I'm glad I could bring in this video and kind of give you like what I'm thinking as far as stats go and what I think these commanders will bring to the table. That's our job as content creators, to come out here and kind of give our opinion and kind of look at, what we've seen in the past as far as stats given out. And I know that I've kind of like flip-flopped in the video a little bit between like 2 stats, like what I think they'll be, but that's because I think, in the past, that's what we've seen as a pattern for like, oh, they want to give this stat this, so the next skill does pretty much the same thing almost. So they're going to make it like do this. So it'll be like little stats per passive to give you like one bigger stat essentially. Or just enough to where it's like it will make a slight difference. But other than that, I hope you guys have an amazing night. Please like and subscribe on the video to really help get my content out there to all the other people who are looking for videos like this to kind of try and figure out, these newer commanders. And this is my first commander like review type video. So I'd really appreciate, any likes and subscribes you guys can give me. My name is Sin. You guys have an amazing night. Peace.